There's no shortage of bad press for Blizzard and Activision going around today. And a few days ago, I received a story from Jules Coulier. I don't know how to pronounce his last name appropriately, but it was through a trusted connection that had shared lots of important information about the inner workings of Blizzard, in which I've broken before. They reached out to me because they knew they could trust me. I didn't at that time publish the story for a variety of reasons. One, I had just made a Blizzard video. Two, I wanted to wait to see how things played out, because it was, in my opinion, that the whole situation made me a bit uncomfortable. A lengthy story was shared with me directly via email through probably another 10 of my internal sources in the industry. I saw the same story posted on just about every forum out there on Reddit. And I worried at first that perhaps this was some sort of smear campaign from a former employee. And I guess perhaps you could still classify it as such. The reason I chose to cover it today is because one of the most common themes of the videos that I do here on The Quartering, of which I hope you enjoy and I hope you're subscribed. I hope that you always remember to click that thumbs up button below the videos, because it truly does help spread the word and helps the channel a lot. Is one of the things I cover the most is hypocrisy. It's one of the things that irritates me the most. It's basically the reason I'm so aggressively against SJWs, not necessarily liberal ideas. In fact, I support many of them. It's the hypocritical social justice warriors that I have a problem with, which is often misunderstood by those who find themselves far left-leaning but not radical. And this story has just about everything in it. It has a minority employee receiving, at least by his description, near constant harassment and failure of leadership inside of Blizzard. Why is this story important? Well, it's because Blizzard is a company that is constantly virtue signaling about just how woke they are, just how inclusive they are. That's why I continue to break these stories, and that's why you spreading these videos is important to me, because I want more people to understand that just like Blizzard, as I talked about in a video yesterday, uses the gay band-aid to cover up bad press, abusing the LGBT community to as a smokescreen for internet brownie points and free positive press from wannabe woke game journalists. I've always known that these corporations, that these companies, they don't care about you. They don't care about their consumers. You're just a purchase. It's just a formula for them. They are virtue signalers, and it is disgusting. And I'm going to now, I've chosen now to cover this because, well, enough time has passed. I've reached out to enough insiders, including this man's wife, and I've spoken basically directly to people with direct knowledge of the situation, and I believe their interpretation of this to be true. And this is just another day in the life of Blizzard, not walking the talk. I won't go through the entire post because it is extraordinarily long, but I will leave a link in the description should you choose to read the story from the horse's mouth. The real reason I left Blizzard Entertainment. I've written this retelling several times. When I was hired full-time, that was in the mood in my team changed. We were no longer a unit, but two people, Drew, Gemma, Beretta, and Mrkovic. Sorry about the names, and me. Meetings, calls, important components of the tour would be secret to me and only a task to execute when things were due or on fire. I felt like an outsider. At first I thought it was normal since I was still new, but having taken a lot of work, Hearthstone, business operations, and whatever little I could help Trevor with, made it so that I didn't notice much or care. Let's actually go to some of a breakdown here. He joined Blizzard back in 2013, according to his LinkedIn profile. I've also confirmed this. I've spoken directly to him. But the ordeal really didn't begin until joining the Hearthstone esports team, which handles operations and tournaments for popular digital card game, in 2016. After gaining a full-time position on the team, he claims that he was left out of meetings, calls about important components of the then current tour, and that a colleague would joke about my sexism or natural inclination to be so due to my Mexican heritage. That's interesting. I've never actually heard that. Maybe it's because, I don't know. Is that a thing? I really didn't even know that. The assumption, because my attitude and beliefs were that of Mexican machista, a male chauvinist. I didn't make much of this since she said it was just in jest, but that would weigh on me. He continues that the jokes about his machismo and being Mexican would only become more frequent, and he was eventually diagnosed with major depression and anxiety. I'm certain that there are other factors that led to that. I'm sure that going to work every day in a situation where you feel like this doesn't help. As a side note, like, it's weird that, sometimes you just have to have some social awareness. I have, for example, black friends that we make like comments back and forth that would be perceived as, too spicy. But since we know each other, it's like a meme. He makes fun of me for like not using washcloth with soap and other stereotypes, and I always offer him watermelon flavored things as a joke. But that's like amongst friends, right? That's not at work. And also, you've got to have like the awareness to know that that's either okay, or if you're making someone uncomfortable, it's usually pretty obvious to tell. A few months after joining the team, that's what it sounded like to me initially, by the way, the reason I tell that story, which is why I didn't want to necessarily report on it. I'm like, maybe they were just busting your balls and you were a little too sensitive about it. Maybe that's true, but as a boss, you should probably pick up on that. Although, also, if I work for a woke company like Blizzard, I'm probably not taking any risks with spicy jokes. After a few months after joining the team, he spoke to his manager about his treatment. I was told I was being moody and that nobody knew how to approach me. When I told him what was happening, I was told not to pay attention and that he would continue to take care of it. That wouldn't be the case, and the racial attacks continued. Murillo Culier felt that he had become the team's punching bag and it was still being left out of key meetings. He also alleges that his instrumental contributions to Hearthstone esports activities in 2016 were completely omitted during the internal review, while both his manager and colleagues that led the abuse received promotions. Combined with how regularly he would work into the early hours of the morning, that this began to take a toll on his health. Over the following 2 years, he would suffer regular panic attacks, nervous breakdowns, develop PTSD, and even consider ending it at various points, culminating in an actual attempt in December 2017. He would raise concerns with superiors on a weekly basis, but little to nothing was done to address them. He left Blizzard in April 2018, going on briefly to work at Rocket League developer Psyonix before setting up his own firm. He finishes by adding his decision to share his story was in part triggered this week by the revelation that Overwatch's character 76 is gay, continuing Blizzard's long-running stance that the multiplayer shooter can be a beacon of diversity. The idea of inclusion and representation and every voice matters and think globally never meant that for me and other people of color that I've spoken to, he writes. Because up until recently in the last 2 years, has the community had representation and initiatives, but are we really represented? Most people didn't know why I left Blizzard Entertainment and why I couldn't stand idly by, why others didn't have the slightest clue to why my vitriol towards the company. I truly loved that and that I poured everything into, only to be shown the back door. I have filed a federal complaint. This is public knowledge, and nobody can tell me I cannot share what happened to me personally. This sounds a lot like other stories we've talked about, that the management at Blizzard still sounds like a bunch of underskilled good old boys and girls, apparently. People that have no real clue how to manage people. This is often an issue inside of big companies just because people demand raises and they get promotions instead, and they don't know how to help people. And for all of the virtue signaling that Blizzard does, this story is running wild. There are many sites covering, and this is exactly, even though I think based on some of the statements, some of the ways that this person talks and some of the comments they have, we wouldn't necessarily agree on everything. I think we would probably totally agree that this whole diversity and inclusion and wokeness at Blizzard is completely BS. And as I've always reported, and as I will continue to report, that this is just to fool low IQ people and journalists, which are basically the same thing in my experience. You can see other articles, Hotspot picking up allegations of abuse levied against Blizzard. Allegations of an unhealthy work environment have once again been levied against one of the gaming industry's biggest developers. Blizzard Entertainment has been accused of this by a former employee. He worked in Hearthstone, part of a wide problem. This is far from the first time we've heard allegations of an unhealthy work environment amongst the biggest game developers. In the last 6 months alone, there was an in-depth report about widespread sexism at Riot Games from Kotaku and employees at Rockstar Games working 100-hour work weeks, although that was pretty much debunked. In the twit longer, some of the details are quite stressful, and it's concerning to me that this person appears to have fallen through the cracks, which will happen at a big company. Unfortunately, it's difficult to give everyone the one-on-one attention that maybe they would need at a particular time, and sometimes the warning signs of somebody having issues like this are difficult to pick up and necessary, and maybe they're not always the workplace's responsibility. However, it sounds like the workplace environment was not helping this person at all, and I'm certain that they were a very loud agitator for change. It doesn't, you couldn't convince me that this person's superiors and their superiors didn't know about the situation and didn't know how to handle it. I mean, they obviously all knew. They clearly didn't know how to handle it or didn't care, which is curious because part of me wonders if they would have acted more aggressively on this or more effectively on this had he been male. That's one question that I've been asking myself, because we see every game journalist in the planet covering it when it's a woman. But in their defense, we do see some people covering it, some of the smaller outlets covering it, even though it's a man. It'll be interesting to see if we see Polygon or Kotaku choose to cover this. And it's easy to tell a dude to suck it up. I don't know. I've never really been exposed to this type of thing. And it's just disgusting behavior by a company, again, that continues to virtue signal to clueless people on the outside that they're super diverse and super woke and super inclusive, when clearly they're the exact opposite. As Jordan Peterson would say, Blizzard needs to clean their room. I hope you'll take a second to share this video and share the story, and always just be aware that when companies pander, it doesn't just have to be about wokeness. It could even be about things that are perceived as not woke. That just know that when a company is marketing to you, they know exactly what they're doing. They know who their customers are. They know what they want to hear. So always be skeptical when giant super mega corporations are telling you stuff that you might want to hear. I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you again real soon.